It's right next to the river. I don't really believe in ghosts completely, but I don't disbelieve in them. To this day, I still believe that was the ghost of Kurt Vonnegut for some weird reason. I had to see him in a house. He was trapped in a house. Somewhere coming back from Waterville, lost on the Moosehead Trail. I do feel like a couple times I time warped into weird areas of Maine. Somehow one time I time warped. I might show this in the screenplay. I time warped. Look at this. Someone was fishing. I time warped one time right to Stephen King's house. I don't know how I did it to this day, but it was raining out, lots of thunder, all this stuff, and this will probably be in there. And I was just driving, I could barely even see. Somehow, I went like to like a T, you know, where I could turn right or left. And I was like straight this way, and I turned and I saw his house over here. You can't do that on that road. On Broadway, West Broadway, which is 47 West Broadway, just passes by one way. It's like a road opened up. If you look at how it works, is like Stephen King's house is kind of like, it's on West Broadway. It's 47 on West Broadway, I believe. And it's just one road that goes like this. There's no T intersection at his house, meaning there's no road that leads to his house and then you turn left. It didn't make any sense. So I went back to see it later. It's like, where's that road that goes this way and then to the left? It was a very long evening. I was trying to return a Netflix movie in the middle of the storm. So it was raining. Probably exhaustion, something of the sort. That's what I'm thinking. It was probably that. Weird things happen. So that'll be in the screenplay, so there'll be some of that. I did not try to dig into Stephen King's basement, but literally, I thought about it. I had a dream sequence idea. So literally, I had a thought about it, or I had a fantasy, you know. But metaphorically, I did. That's what I'm doing. See, that's what we're doing, metaphorically. Metaphorically, we are digging into the basement of Stephen King's house and stealing one of his stories. It's a great story of a thief, an artist, and ghost, and writing, and learning to live in a very cold, crazy environment that's ruled by moose and the Micmac Indians.
Sales event of the year.
Well, here we go to drop off your Ascension coffee with your turkey baby. They only have walks on the weekends. It's like salmon. Looks like it's going to be a business. One thing the Kurt Vonnegut ghost, you know, kind of did is when he was given the directions, he brought his hands out like this. At his window, he had like this big glass window, and he brought his hands out, kind of like a crucifixion almost, when he was saying, you know, you want to go from this way, which is from west, and then head to the east. He brought his hands out like that in front of the window. And it was kind of funny, you know. Something Vonnegut might have done. But he looked younger. He didn't look like an old Vonnegut at all. Not an old Vonnegut. Probably about the time when he wrote the Barnhouse one. The Barnhouse story. He seemed like a younger Vonnegut. Wrote a collection of short stories that were fantastical. You know, Vonnegut's a great hero because he was a POW during World War II in Germany. Dresden got flattened and they survived it in a basement. He was promoted as a captain of his POW team, but he had kind of a temper and went up to one of the Nazi guards and said, "Do you know what the Russians are going to do to you when they find you?" So they promoted him to just a regular. The guy could have took his pistol out and shot him in the head. He didn't care. He was really that way. That's why he did what he did. He ended up writing some of the best stories that we have. Or the most creative, very creative stories. He's a hard one to remember. I always liked Slaughterhouse-Five. Vonnegut wouldn't care, though. He would have been a heck of a filmmaker, too. Who knows what his stuff would have looked like, though. A lot of the writers today, they can be their own little filmmaker. There's Tom Burnett. I think what the filmmaker does when it comes to cinema is he refines what, let's say, the writer or the vlogger can't necessarily do. He refines it and polishes it. It makes it very pleasing, cinematically delicious, as they say. Seven is the other one. There you go. I was about to get it for you. Maybe by 2 seconds. There you are. I'm gonna drop it right there. Yeah, no problem. Sometimes I need a photo. I don't know if this one will or not. No problem. Oh, all right. All right. So I told her about the locks. I only got the locks on the weekends. Friday's kind of a weekend though, it's a thing. Anyway, that's what I feel. All right, off to the next one. Well, we got a Whataburger. So we're going to pick that Whataburger up and drop it off at your doorstep. Just to let you know if you were wondering. Kitty's okay. He's biting my ankles as I'm writing the script. I think he likes it. He just wants me to be at heightened senses as I write it. Wants it to be kind of on edge rather than just have it easy, you know. So he bites my ankles as I write the script. Then I have to send him into another room because he really digs in there. He's a pretty tough cat. I've had a lot of them, but not as frisky as Edmund. That's why I put in Cassavetes, because, you know, Cassavetes didn't give a flying F about anybody really, other than, you know, he just did what he wanted to do, you know. That's why his films are very different, very interesting. You know, they're really the only one that I've really seen as husbands. I want to see a lot of his films. Shadows looks cool, you know. There's another one Cassavetes did, Woman Under the Influence looks like a really brilliant one. Peter Falk, he always had a really good cast of, you know, of actors. He chose like the best. I mean, Peter Falk's one of our best actors since Brando. That's why I gave Kitty last name Cassavetes. He likes to play. Oh, they're from Tennessee. Yeah, so Cassavetes was like that, you know. He foremost wanted to play, I think, you know. He really put the play in screenplay, you know. I don't know a lot about his process. I know that he kept a lot of film, and it looked like maybe he did some of the editing. I know that he was in Dirty Dozen. Now, an idea that I have, and this is something I can do, I don't know if I put it in the book, but we could go like after he finds his way away from Vonnegut, you know, not the ghost of Vonnegut, I guess you could say. When he finds his way past that house and he's headed back, and you see Dover, we can go into like a dream sequence. I thought about doing this. I don't know if I thought about doing it with the book, because I guess I'm more of a filmmaker. Oh, that's cool right there. Look at this right here. The statue, the fireman right there. But I thought about maybe when he goes back to Dover, he finds his way. He stops by what looks like the ghost of Kurt Vonnegut. I might call him that, just to be specific. Man that favors a young Kurt Vonnegut. Would be the character name. Man that favors a young Kurt Vonnegut. Well, he finally makes it back to Dover, and I think it kind of goes into his head, you know, and it kind of, you know, gets dreamy, and he all of a sudden, you know, he's in Dresden, you know, after the bombing, because war is a big part of Escape from Maine. And he's there, like, with the other soldiers, the POW soldiers, and you see him walk up to the Nazi soldier and say, "Do you know what the Russians are going to do when they find you?" And you see the Nazi soldier look over at him, and boom, it cuts, you know, or something. I know it's kind of sudden, and we don't go back to it again in the story, but it shows how Jonah thinks, and it shows that he does a lot of imagining. And so there's a lot of imagination in it that's probably not in the book as much. I think the book, I was mostly taking notes. I was trying to get what people really said, which is interesting. I didn't do a lot of color on it. I'm doing that on the screenplay. So the screenplay is kind of an extension of the book. So if the book is ever really published, it would probably be published almost like a notes. Kind of like Notes of the Underground. Dostoevsky was mostly notes. And then, you know, the extension of the book is the screenplay. Here is this thing here. The Lord can... They need to redo that one. The Godly Son. I don't even know what that said. But it's like an extension. You know, definitely want to publish it, because it'll have color in it. You know, it has all the things that the book should have had. you know, the structure, the novel structure, you know, which is what the book needed. So I'm putting that in there. It's a trail, it's a map to his story, to Jonah and his life there in Maine, you know, in 2012. So this is a pretty cool thing. Good old Whataburger. To have Jonah, you know, dressed up in like a POW camp outfit, kind of like how Kurt Vonnegut was, and you know, you could see Dresden kind of in the background smoking, and he walks up to him, and you know what the Russians are gonna do to you when they find you. And, you know, I was waiting for him to kill him. So you can have that aspect in the movie. So if it becomes like a series or something, you can keep going in and out of different stories. I just like that idea of having it in there. It was one thing I remembered in the Kurt Vonnegut biography. So it'll be a man that favors Kurt Vonnegut in the house that he stops at for directions. That'll be his title for that character. We're going to have a lot of little characters like that. It's going to be a big one, boys. It's going to be a big one. Could be like Gone with the Wind kind of big things. They're breaking a lot of rules and all kinds of wonderful stuff. It's time for me to eat my oatmeal cookie and talk about how Francis Ford Coppola lost to Bob Fosse in 1972 after directing The Godfather. Not Bob Fosse, but when Francis Ford Coppola... They did win Best Picture. I'm going to talk a lot about it. I noticed one cool thing about Francis Ford Coppola when they did win for Best Picture for Godfather, but he lost to Bob Fosse. But he had this green velvet tuxedo jacket on. I thought was kind of cool. It's an oatmeal cookie. Oatmeal's my favorite. Yeah, oatmeal cookies are really the best. Well, a lot of people say even to this day it should have went to Coppola because the directing was on like every single frame of the movie. It was all, you know, all direction from Coppola. Although I want to say, I have to go and look at. I don't have a list of members. I want to say he won a lot of awards for Godfather 2, which is almost even better. I'm not one that talks a lot about Godfather, other than I'm a big Marlon Brando fan. But it's a revolutionary Gone with the Wind kind of mafioso story. Just like Taxi Driver, you know, Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver was inner city New York cab driver, Gone with the Wind. Godfather was like a Gone with the Wind movie. Broke a lot of rules and brought a side of family that no one's seen, a side of America that's been hidden. And a great performance by Marlon Brando, and later by De Niro in The Godfather 2. We're not going to talk about Godfather 3, but still a dynamic film, all three of them. And it also coming from a very complex, detailed book that I haven't read, Mario Piazza. And a high gross ranking, like a high gross ranking film. You know, blew people out of the water. It was the Jaws of the mafioso. It was a big deal. Even today, films mock it, you know, and you take from it, you know. But the lighting alone in The Godfather is very, very interesting and done in a very specific way. Just the lighting alone, it could be studied. And a lot of times the editing is studied too. The editing for The Godfather is something that in film school you study. Probably need to watch more of The Godfather. I may buy the trilogy. I do have Apocalypse Now. which I think is one of his Apocalypse Now is a masterpiece by Coppola. I'm a big fan of The Conversation because I like Gene Hackman, and I love the soundtrack in The Conversation. I love the feel. That was when Coppola was kind of introducing himself as a masterful artist, as one of our all-time great filmmakers. And people don't realize that Francis Ford Coppola really helped Martin Scorsese. They were friends. They would go over to New York and eat at Martin Scorsese's mom's house. And they were, you know, buddies, you know, in the same bloodline kind of thing, you know. Very different filmmakers, very different filmmakers. One's more classic than the other. One is a different, you know, has a different style of speaking than the other, but they're both very, very, very done. I would say that the Coppola is more Brahms. He's more classical. He approaches the filmmaking in a classical way. Scorsese, I think, approaches it more from the hip, you know, in a more hip way. I'd say that's one of the major difference. One's more classic, and then one is more kind of hip. You want to do a shot of the Trinity River. Yep, Trinity River. And that's all I'll say about The Godfather. Coppola's also very good at horror films. You know, Dracula's a masterpiece that was done in a studio with Gary Oldman and Anthony Hopkins. It was it's almost done to like the sound of a heartbeat. But it's an amazing piece. If you ever watch it from the first frame to the end, it's what how I see Coppola, you know, in filming and, you know, these classic, you know, movies. He's doing something now that he's wanting to do for a long time. I'm not going to talk about it because you're not really supposed to when they're in production. So, but he is doing something now, which is amazing because we've been sitting around for a very long time waiting for Coppola to do something, you know, other than make wine. And he makes a lot of wine. I've drunk some of his wine, and I don't really drink that much at all, but I've had a few bottles of Coppola's wine, and I rarely ever drink. But, you know, it's going to be cool. We're all going to go see it. Not going to mention any names, nothing about the movie, but we just know that we have to wait. So, they're from Florida. I got to drop off this food at your door. Food for friends. All right. Funny, I have a story about the leaf blower. My friend Rob Vasquez and I were making a movie. It turned into a short called From Now Until Morning, but we were supposed to be at the thing called the silent pool, where this pastor goes and meditates and prays. And they had like 4 or 5 leaf blowers going on. I just said, just roll it, you know. It actually turned out to be a really good character piece. Yeah.